Welcome back to Echoes from the Battlefield. I'm your host Nasirullah Jan Safi, and this is part 3, the final chapter of our deep dive into one of the most intense engagements faced by some of the most fearless fighters I have ever known. If you haven't watched the first 2 parts of Let's Meet the Medal of Honor Dakota Meyer, I highly encourage you to go back. Trust me, you will want the full story. Today I bring you the final moments of a battle that pushed the boundaries of courage, loyalty, and the will to survive. A moment that defined who we are in the face of the unimaginable, the Battle of Ganjgal Valley. When we last left up, the firefight was unrelenting. The hills echoed with gunfire, smoke choked the air, and every decision could be the difference between life and death. Now we return to the chaos. What you're about to hear is unfiltered, first-hand account of what it is like in the heart of combat, where life, death, and instinct collide. So let's get into it. Dakota Meyer ran up to one of the Afghan National Army soldiers. He thought he was going to die. Dakota was pinned down, but he started trying to do first aid until he could move. Dakota Meyer got an NPA in, or nasopharyngeal airway, but the round started drilling this little rock he was hiding behind. He had to get low. Dakota Meyer got him into the truck, and they were going to try to get one more guy he had seen on the way in before heading back to the CCP, or Casualty collection point. Captain Swanson pulled the LTV to where Dakota told him to stop. He jumped out of the vehicle and told him, "I'll be right back." Dakota moved to where the body was. Once he got there, he realized he was a bit too far from the truck for comfort. He had to get him out. Fast. He felt a pulse, nothing. He looked at his hands, green gloves with the fingers cut out. It was Dad Ali. He was the closest Afghan National Army soldier to Dakota Meyer. Dakota tried to pick him up, but his gear was too heavy, so he started taking it off. Cut the tourniquet he had rigged to hold his flag together. Just as he was doing that, Dakota Meyer heard a voice in broken English say, "Drop your weapon." Dakota looked up. Big man, long black beard, dark white man dress, a neck Kevlar, grand chest rake. There was no time to think, no room for hesitation. Dakota raised his head and his weapon and fired his M4, point blank. He also launched a 2 or 3 round when it didn't even explode. The range was too close. It was the end for the militant. Dakota's body reacted before his brain even had a chance to register the threat. Wounded soldiers were scattered all around, their screams for help echoing from every corner. Dakota pulled one of the soldiers to the truck, tried tossing him in, but rounds were flying all around him. He shouted, "I can't get him in. Leave him here. We'll come back." But Captain Swanson jumped out of the vehicle and helped him load the A&A soldier. They jumped back in and took off. The fire they were taking, it was real. It was punching through the truck. Dakota didn't know if they were making it out this time. Once they reached the CCP or Casualty collection point, Dakota jumped out of the vehicle to check on First Sergeant and the Major. He told Staff Sergeant Wright and Lieutenant Fabio to switch out the gun trucks again. While they were doing that, Dakota loaded the Major and the First Sergeant into a Humvee truck and called it over the net. He told him to pick him up because they were going back in to find their brothers in the combat zone. I waited alone. It felt like forever. He started to walk into the valley by himself. That's when Pal Horse came over the net. "I don't think that is a good idea," so Dakota Meyer waited for the Humvee, hopped in the back seat, and they rolled in. Lieutenant Fabio and the Turk were returning fire, and Dakota was dragging Afghan National Army soldiers into the back of the truck, trying to get them out. For hours, maybe 3 or 4, they just kept going back in, pulling their brothers out of the battle zone. They pulled up to a berm. Lieutenant Fabio was laying down fire. Captain Swanson was directing it. Dakota was getting frustrated. "Why aren't we going in? We have to get them out." Swanson said, "We're waiting on the army." The time was running out for Dakota. "We're going in, or I will go alone." Dakota Meyer added, "Finally they had more Afghan National Army and Afghan border police vehicles show up." That's when Pal Horse called in. "We have spotted 5 guys near a terrace. They're not moving." Dakota Meyer prayed, "Please, don't let it be them. Let them be in a house somewhere alive." But when they got closer, Captain Swanson said Special Operation Forces was going to let them. Dakota agreed to provide security. Special Operation Forces tried to land, but got engaged hard from the ridgeline. Too dangerous. They weren't going to land. It was too dangerous for them. Dakota told Swanson, "Tell him to mark the location." They popped orange smoke about 25 meters across an open area. As soon as Dakota Meyer saw that, he sprinted. Beacon fire cracked all around him. He jumped off a terrace, fell 9 feet into a trench. Dakota lay right next to Gunny Johnson. He was on his back, eyes open. He checked his pulse, step, shot through the front plate, rounds kept into his groin. Dakota Meyer kept clearing the trench, found Lieutenant Johnson on his back, eyes open. Lieutenant laying on top of him, made supplies everywhere. Lieutenant Johnson shot in the right shoulder and other parts of the body. Lieutenant face blown apart by a close AK-47 burst. Then he found Staff Sergeant Kennefic face down. He rolled him over. He didn't even look like himself anymore. His face was frozen in a silent scream, mouth open. He had been shot in the back of the head, point blank. And his left hand still clenched tight with his GPS like he was holding onto his mission until the very end. There were dozens of dead A&E soldiers next to them. Dakota dropped to his knees, got on the radio. The 4 missing in action had been found. They are all now killed in action. Just a few feet away, Abdul the interpreter lay on his back, completely still. A single glance told the story. He had been shot in the chest and head. The light that once lighted up his eyes was gone. The man who had stood beside him through every danger was now silent forever. It was supposed to be Abdul's final mission before going home to start a new life, to marry, to finally be with his family. But instead he was buried far from home with a heart full of dreams that would never come true. Abdul wasn't just a friend, he was a brother to me. A bond forged in the heat of a battle, one that went beyond words, a connection that can never be broken, even in death. Dakota tried closing their eyes, called for help, tossed what was left of their gear up over the terrace and started carrying them out. He started with Staff Sergeant Kennefic, got him on his shoulder halfway to the road. He fell, he landed on top of him. Dakota got up, kept going. The A&E soldier helped. They got Lieutenant and Lieutenant Johnson to the road. Dakota carried out Gunny Johnson. They loaded them into 2 trucks. Dakota told the Afghan National Army driver to wait for him at the ORP. He would ride with them. They were still under fire, but they pulled out, got to where Norman was coming down from the OP, or observation post. Dakota told everyone he was going to forward operating base joist with the bodies. He would see them there. Dakota walked about a click and a half to the ORP, got in the truck with the Afghan National Army driver. Dakota's interpreter jumped into the back. There were 2 interpreters with him during the Battle of Ganjgal Valley. One survived. The other one got killed along with 4 Marines and dozens of Afghan National Army soldiers. Dakota sat between Staff Sergeant Kennefic and Lieutenant Johnson, held him the whole way. Back on base, Staff Sergeant Boyce helped him. They got him in the body bags, took their items out of their pockets. Dakota took Staff Sergeant Kennefic's rank off of his left collar. He wears it with his dog tags now. Dakota took Lieutenant Johnson's and Layton's rank too. He kept them in his room on base at Combat Outpost Monty. On September 15, 2011, Dakota Meyer was awarded with the Medal of Honor for his extraordinary bravery during the Battle of Ganjgal in Eastern Kunar province of Afghanistan. It was September 8, 2009 when he risked his life time and time again, charging through enemy fire to save the lives of his fellow US and Afghan warriors. Dakota became the first living US Marine in 38 years to receive our nation's highest military honor. But his story doesn't end here. On April 17, 2025, Dakota Meyer once again answered the call. He returned to service, rejoining the Marine Corps to continue serving this great nation. He raised his right hand and swore the oath of enlistment, the very same words he spoke back in 2006 when he first joined the Marine Corps. In his own words, "I believe the Marine Corps is, hands down, the best institutions on the planet." This is the story of Lieutenant the Medal of Honor Dakota Meyer. I'm your host, Nasrullah Jan Safi. Thank you for joining me for this powerful journey through the Battle of Ganjgal Valley. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, leave a review, and stay with me for more stories, more voices from the battlefield. Up next, on Echoes from the Battlefield, I will be sharing my first-hand eyewitness account of the Battle of Cop Keating, a perspective you won't find in the movie The Outpost. I was there, I saw it unfold, and it's time to set the record straight. Stay tuned for never-before-seen footages and first-hand details from one of the deadliest days of the war, the Cop Keating story. Stay tuned as we dive into the reality behind the headlines, the courage, the chaos, and the untold truths from the ground. This is Echoes from the Battlefield. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget.